Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, and so I'm going to try to do your English lesson with you so that you can follow along. Let's start out first with the poem that we read yesterday on page 317. I asked you to write about it, and that was for you to see if you could come up with a riddle on your own. So what I need you to do is make a folder or a notebook, somewhere where you can keep all of the things that you write, both for English and for history, and maybe kind of separate those. And then when we get back to school, or if we have to continue to do online teaching, when you get your new assignments, you can bring those and I'll be grading those. So we're having a little bit of difficulty with my husband and I both being online at the same time. He's working from home, I'm working from home. So hopefully we can get this worked out. Anyway, what I was telling you was to be sure that you put your assignments in a folder so that we'll be able to have them. Also, make sure you put your name on it, put what subject it is, what page number it is. If you're doing something for literature and you're writing it, write the page number so that I'll be able to tell what assignment is what. All right, so let's go ahead and start with today. Today in Of Places, you're going to be reading the story, The Sinking of the Titanic, which is on page 318. So 318 to 326. And then if you'll notice tomorrow, if you're kind of running out of time, tomorrow I'll give you an extra day to be reading that story. And then we'll discuss the things in Think About It together. That's what you'll be doing today out of Places. So in your spelling, I want you to open your spelling book up, please, to page 83. Let's read the poem together. Page 83, The Flag Goes By. Hats off. Along the street there comes a blaze of bugles, a ruffle of drums, a flash of color beneath the sky. Hats off. The flag is passing by. Blue and crimson and white it shines over the steel-tipped ordered lines. Hats off. The colors before us fly. But more than the flag is passing by. Sea fights and land fights, grim and great, fought to make and save the state. Weary marches and sinking ships, cheers of victory on dying lips. Days of plenty and years of peace, march of a strong land's swift increase. Equal justice, right and law, stately honor and revered awe. Sign of a nation great and strong, toward her people from foreign wrong. Pride and glory and honor, all live in the colors that stand or fall. Hats off. Along the street there comes a blare of bugles, a ruffle of drums, and loyal hearts are beating high. Hats off. The flag is passing by. Again, I want to emphasize that we need to be thankful for all of the people that have served our country in many, many ways. Some of your family or some of your friends are actually serving in the armed forces, and we appreciate that. And we kind of think about that when the flag goes by. I want you not to just go, oh, there's the American flag. I want you to understand how many people fought, and some even died, and some are still fighting and being separated from their families so that we can have our freedom. So let's try to appreciate that when we think about the flag. And if you have an opportunity to tell someone who is serving in our services, tell them thank you for their service, whether wherever you are, because sometimes that may be exactly what they need that day. So that's one way that we can minister to those who are ministering for us. All right, let's look now at your spelling words, your vocabulary words. This is going to be list 23 that we're working on today. So that would be on page 58 of your spelling book, page 58. Let's look at these vocabulary words. 1 through 5 is all I'm asking you to do today. So the first one is abyss, which means a bottomless pit, a bottomless pit. Satan will be bound and cast into the abyss for 1,000 years. One day that's really going to happen. That's what the Bible tells us. All right, look at the next one, alternative. It's a choice of one or two options. Alternative. Mason's idea was a good alternative to the original plan. And number 3, commence means to start. When will the meeting commence? When will the meeting start? And our sentence are there. It just has, when will the meeting commence? That was the sentence. So it also has synonyms there for you as well on all of these words. Concerted. Concerted is an adjective that means planned or accomplished, usually by many people. We make a concerted effort to continue our work, even though we're not physically together. Number 5 is conjecture. That's to judge or conclude based on guesswork. That would be the definition of conjecture. All right, so I'm going to read a couple of sentences and you tell me which word might go in that particular sentence. Actually, I'll read the definition with it and you guys tell me which one it would be. Faced with the choice of one or two options, eating his broccoli or not getting dessert, Nathan chose eating his vegetables. So what word would I be using in that? The choice of one or two options. If you said alternative, you're correct. All right, let's look at the next one. Baseball games frequently start with the singing of our national anthem. Start. What could go in that place? It could be baseball games frequently commence, start or begin, okay? The next one, despite the planned or accomplished, usually by many people, pleading of his entire family, Mr. Jacobs could not be persuaded to take them to Hawaii. So what would replace the planned or accomplished, usually by many people? That would be concerted. If you said concerted, you're correct. All right, let's look at this next one. Undaunted by the death of the bottomless pit that separated him from the choicest grass, the mountain goat leaped nimbly across the opening. What would we use instead of bottomless pit? Bottomless pit. That would be abyss. Okay, and then let's see. These are not in order, so I'm having to look for them. We did abyss, we did alternative, we did commence, and we did concerted. How about this one? When I read a novel by Agatha Christie, I like to judge or conclude based on guesswork how she will resolve the plot. All right, so that would be to judge or conclude based on guesswork. Which vocabulary word would that be? Conjecture. Conjecture. Okay, I like to conjecture how she will resolve the plot. All right, those are the words that I want you to copy, and copy the definition of 3 times, and you can put today's date on that. That would be Tuesday, March 24th. So that would be vocabulary 1 through 5. Again, because we are separated by distance, if you want to put the 6 through 10 vocabulary words for tomorrow on the same sheet of paper, that's fine. You know, I'm not about wasting sheets of paper. I just need to know that it is list 23 that you're working on. All right, let's take out your grammar book, and I would like you to turn in this one to page 219. 219. This is recognizing prepositions too. This page, 219. All right, so yesterday we went over the ways to recognize prepositions 1 through 4. So this is number 5. Number 5 says, many of the words in the preposition list on page 217 can be used as adverbs. It's easy to tell the difference because prepositions always have objects, but adverbs never do. So I want you to take out your pen or your pencil and your highlighter, and I want you to highlight this little part right here. Prepositions always have objects. That's on the second line. Highlight that, and highlight adverbs never do. So what we're looking for when we look in these sentences and we see that word that could be a preposition, We want to see, does it have an object? Is there something that's receiving that object of that preposition? Or is it just a word there that might be describing something? So let's take a look at exercise A. Exercise A says, identify the italicized word as preposition or an adverb. So what you're going to do is you're going to write PREP if it's a preposition in the space before, and you're going to write ADV if it's an adverb. We know that adverbs describe what? Verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. And prepositions begin a prepositional phrase, so they're going to have an object. So let's look at number 1. John Glenn left the ground behind and became the first American to orbit the Earth. All right, behind is the word that's italicized. It's not the only one that could be a preposition in that sentence, but it's the only one that is italicized. So let's look at behind. All right, does it begin a prepositional phrase? Is it behind the street, behind the door? No, it does not. So what is it describing? Behind, it tells where he left the ground. Okay, so that's going to be a what? An adverb. An adverb. So adverb would go in that line. Look at the next one. John Glenn stood behind his constituents when he was a senator from Ohio. All right, now we've got behind, and look at what comes after it. Behind his constituents. That makes it a what? A prepositional phrase, because you've got behind what? And then you've got his constituents. That's the noun that receives the prepositional. All right, so you're going to write preposition on number 2. Now I want you to do number 3 through 10. Do that by yourself, and then pause this video so that you can get that done. When you finish, start the video again, and I'll go over the answers with you. Well, welcome back. Let's look at number 3. The First Lady motioned for the guests to be seated inside. Inside does not begin a prepositional phrase. There's one, to be seated, but inside tells where they were going to be seated, so that would be an adverb. Number 4, the First Lady set the valuable gift inside the display cabinet. Inside is the beginning of the prepositional phrase, inside the display cabinet, so that would be a preposition. Look at number 5. The guard at the tomb of the unknown soldier walks along a set path. Along a set path is a prepositional phrase, so along is going to be the preposition that begins that phrase. Number 6, the guard told the disrespectful observers to move along. Now you have along that tells where they were supposed to move, so obviously that's going to be an adverb for number 6. Number 7, a few soldiers sat down on the hard ground to quickly eat their rations. Now you've got down. A few soldiers sat where? Down. So that's going to be an adverb. Number 8, the soldiers went down the range to practice maneuvers. Down the range is a prepositional phrase. So down there is your preposition at the beginning of the phrase. Number 9, Abraham Lincoln led the nation through the horrors of the Civil War. You've got the word through that's italicized, but it begins the preposition through the horrors, and that is a preposition. Through is a preposition in that sentence. But in number 10, he believed God would see the nation through. And so this one is an adverb. This does not begin a prepositional phrase, obviously, because it's at the end of a sentence. So that's one clue for you, but also it tells how or where that he would see the nation. So it describes see. All right, exercise B says for you to write 4 original sentences that contain prepositional phrases. And it says to use one with at least a compound preposition. And if you turn to the page before this, you'll see that it tells you on number 4 that some prepositional phrases have a compound object. So you can do one like what you see on page 217 in number 4. Right? That's one of the assignments that I want you to do for today. When you finish that, turn this back on, make it pause now so you can write your sentences, and then turn it back on and we will continue working on the next page. Good. I hope you got your sentences written and you understand fully how to use the prepositional phrase. That's pretty easy, I think, and a review for most of you. All right, let's look at page 220 now. 220 says using prepositions correctly. Now you remember some of the times when we talked about using other words correctly. We need to learn to speak correctly. A lot of times people listen to our speech and they make a judgment, whether it's right or wrong, they make a judgment about our intelligence. And so we want to learn to speak correctly, both because it is right to speak correctly, but we also want to represent ourselves and our family and our school and our God when we go someplace. We want to reflect well on them. So let's look at using them correctly. And you know my rule, never, ever correct an adult if you hear them use it incorrectly. You know what's correct, but you do not correct an adult. That is disrespectful and it will not go well for you. A little hint from Miss Walker. Remember some of those life lessons we do? All right, let's look at page 220. Learn to distinguish these words. So look at number 1. Beside and besides. Beside means by the side of, and besides means in addition to. I want you to highlight that. Beside means beside of. Highlight that, and highlight besides with an S means in addition to. All right, and then here's your examples. The house beside the woods, or the house is beside the woods, and there are no houses on this road besides this one. That means in addition to this one. All right, number 2. This is the difference between and among. Use between when you're referring to 2 people or things, and use among when you're referring to more than 2. So I need you to highlight that. Between refers to 2 people or things, highlight that part, and then highlight among refers to more than 2. We planted a row of sunflowers between the fields. The mother dog walked among her 6 puppies. Okay, we know that fields can be 2 fields or it can be more, but obviously in this sentence it only means 2 because they use the word besides. And the mother dog walked among her 6 puppies. That's more than 2, so we use among there. All right, look at number 3, and I want you to put a big star in front of number 3 because this one is ones that a lot of people confuse, and even Miss Walker has to think about it sometimes before I write the correct one. So we want to look at except with an E and except with an A. Except with an E as a preposition means excluding, and except with an A is a verb and it means to receive or to agree to. So except with an E is a preposition, except with an A is a verb. So that should help us some. So I want you to highlight that. Except with an E as a preposition means excluding. Highlight except, E-X-C-E-P-T, highlight that one, and highlight excluding. And then highlight except with an A, A-C-C-E-P-T. I want you to highlight to receive or to agree to. And then look at the sentence. No one was late except Michael. That's with an E. And the next sentence, except the fact that you cannot go to. Agree to the fact that you cannot go to. All right, look at number 4, in and into. Use in for the location within and use into for motion from outside to inside. So if we're talking about going from outside of the house to the inside of the house, we're going into the house. But if we're talking about being in our English class, we're going to use the word in if we're not walking into it. So that's the difference between in and into. Joe learned to diagram his sentences in English class, and it is time to go into the house, meaning to enter the house. Number 5, we are still having difficulties with Zoom, so I hope that this is not confusing to you. But number 5 is of and have. Of is a preposition and should not be used for the helping verb have. We've talked about this before. Look at your examples. He could have helped. That's incorrect. It's he could have helped. So I want you to look at of and highlight. Of is a preposition and then should not be used for have. Should not be used for have. This is not new for us. All right, so we're going to do exercise A. Joy stands beside or besides Rachel in class. Correct, beside. We're going to cross out the incorrect one, so you're going to cross out besides. Number 2, the little girl sat on the floor and played between or among the frisky puppies. That would be among the puppies, among the puppies. Number 3, when it gets dark outside, it is time to come into or in the house, said Mother. Into is correct because you're entering into the house. All right. Number 4, Cherith would have finished planting the flowers, but she became ill. Or Cherith would have finished planting the flowers, but she became ill. It would be have. We never say would have. Okay. Number 5, I brought all the supplies for the project except with an E or except with an A, the paint. Correct. It's going to be except with an E on that one. Number 6, it's time to go in or into the classroom. It would be into because you're talking about walking from one place into the classroom. Number 7, everyone should have brought into canned goods to donate today or should have brought. Obviously, it's have. We never use should have, right? And number 8, at the end of a long day working in the hot sun, it felt good to go in the air conditioning or into the air conditioning. Remember, you're walking from one place to another, so you would say into. Number 9, I could have helped you if you had only asked, or I could have helped you. Have you noticed there's been 3 of those in just this one exercise? So that tells you you are going to see that again on a quiz or test in the future. So we always say, I could have. Number 10, Mike would have been here earlier if he had not been delayed by the road construction, or Mike would have been delayed earlier. Always would have. Again, let's turn the page and look at number 11. Mr. Tutton planted the azalea bushes among the many hostas already surrounding his patio or between. It's going to be among because it's talking about many, and many is more than 2. Number 12, Elizabeth said she could bring all of the VBS supplies except with an A for the construction paper or except with an E for the construction paper. It's going to be except with an E because that means instead of. And number 13, Gabe walked in or into the classroom and sat at a desk in the front row. He's walking from one place to the other, so it's going to be into. Number 14, Lillian accepted the award. So you're going to use the one with an A or the one with the E. She received it. She was allowed to take it. So you're going to use the one with the A. Number 15, do you have any other sources for your research paper besides or beside these? Always beside. You're not going to use besides. All right, let's look at exercise B. Exercise B, look at the directions and do what it says to the directions so you'll remember what you need to do when you get to the numbers. Number 1, cross out any incorrect prepositions and make corrections where necessary. So cross out the words incorrect prepositions, and then you're going to make the corrections above them. Number 2, mark C before the number of any sentences that are correct as it is. And I'm going to give you a hint. There are only 2 that are correct. So don't go down there and mark a bunch of C's. There's only 2 that are correct. All right, let's look at number 1. There's joy in your heart when you accept God's will for your life. Notice accept. Is that using the correct one? It's used with an E. No, we need to cross that out and we need to write accept with an A. Number 2, The kindergarten teacher walked between her students' desks, helping first one and then another as needed. Are there only two students in a kindergarten class? I taught kindergarten for a lot of years. I never had just two. So we know that it's going to be among, because there have to be more than two in that kindergarten class, especially if it's at ERA. All right, I want you to do numbers 3 through numbers 11. And when you pause this tape, and when you finish number 3 through 11, pick it back up and I will go over them for you. Oh, all finished? Great. Let's look at number 3. Maria went in the kitchen to check out on dinner. Did Maria go in the kitchen or into? You need to cross out in and make it say into. Number 4, because of her achievements, Brianna's applications were accepted with an A. So you want to cross out accepted with an E and put accepted with an A by 3 colleges because it's more than 2. Number 5, do not allow anything to come among you and the Lord. You and the Lord are 2 people. So what are we going to say if it's 2? Are we going to say among or are we going to say between? Yeah, you're going to say between. So you would cross out among and you would write between above it. Number 6, there's a big difference among the way the 2 cars performed under freezing conditions. How many cars were there? Only 2. So you're going to cross out among and you're going to put between. Number 7, Liliana should have brought her passport with her to the airport. Are we going to say should have? No. What are you going to say instead of should have? Always should have. Number 8, we could not decide among the 2 delicious entree choices. How many choices were there? 2. So you're going to say you couldn't decide between. You're going to cross out among and put between. Number 9, Cale and his family are sitting beside the guests they invited, and that one is correct. So you should have a C in front of that one. Number 10, Caitlin must have forgotten to bring her project today. Do you say must have? No, it's going to be must have. So you're going to cross out the of and you're going to write have. And number 11, between green beans and black-eyed peas, I like the beans better. That one is correct. That one is your second one that has a C in front of it because you only have 2 things. And so you're going to say better between the 2 things.